to the founder of VSA, to Gene Kennedy Smith. And so VSA Tennessee came up with a two-pronged idea. The first part was to have a 40-day digital festival. In that festival, there would be international arts and education exchanges, and the products of all of those exchanges would go into a website, and that will open on June 16th. However, we wanted to have another part that was a bit more permanent, and that's where the quilt comes in. And we thought of the quilt because a quilt is a piece of art, and yet each of the individual squares could be something that each of the affiliates could contribute to equally. And obviously we're Tennessee, we're sort of known for this sort of thing, so it seemed to make perfect sense. And then the quilt squares began to come in, and things began to change. Because what we thought was that we were going to get typical quilt squares, but that's not what we got. And when you have a chance to look at the quilt more closely, I'd encourage you to look at some of these things. At the bottom, you may notice some of them look like they have yarn hanging off of them. That's because they were hand woven on a loom. Then you will see that some of them have three-dimensional items coming off of them. Some of them are hand embroidered. Some of them are appliqué. It just went on and on and on. What we were seeing were not your typical quilt squares, we were seeing individual pieces of art. But that's not where I stopped, because then came the stories. There was a story of the young girl who, for the first time, because of working on this project, realized that going to college was a possibility for her. There was also the young girl who had never been around sewing in her life, but she showed so much passion and aptitude for sewing that we believe that she's found a vocation for her life. Then there was a story of the country, and I will say it was France, who they were working with some kids, and those kids got so interested in how are we going to express what France means that they made more and more quilt squares, and I got an entire packet of quilt squares, and they said, we can't decide which one's the best, you're going to have to make that choice. And the stories go on and on and on. It was the stories that breathed life into this quilt. And it was the stories that spoke of what Gene Kennedy Smith believed all along. It was the power of the arts. It's the power of the arts to open doors to education. It's the power of the arts to create career paths. And it's the power of the arts to break down barriers in communication. And it's that last power that I would like to explain one last quilt square on here. And that's the one in the middle that looks like a hand. And that one was created by two young girls. When we were at Middle Tennessee State University, which is where this was quilted together, there were two young girls who were helping quilt it. And they came forward and said, we've developed a design, and we would like, if possible, for it to go on the quilt somewhere. And they said the reason why is because we feel there should be one square on there that doesn't represent just one state, one country, one organization. We feel that somewhere there should be a quilt square that represents everybody. And we feel that that quilt square should represent love, because we feel that is the language that goes beyond all borders, and we think that is the basis of this entire project. When we heard that, we decided we believe they were right. And so not only did it go on the quilt, it went right in the middle. So that is the center of the entire quilt. When we unveiled this quilt at MTSU, we had a group of people there, and when I was finished, there were a few questions. And a gentleman in the audience, he asked me, he said, do you have anything, any piece of paper or document where you can point to a quilt square and tell us what disability that particular individual or group of individuals had? No. On that particular issue, this quilt is completely silent. It tells a lot of stories, it says a lot of things, but you will not see it ever say anything about disability or special needs. That's not what this quilt is about at all. And that brings me back to my own opening comments, because what makes me proud of VSA affiliates and what makes me proud of the participants in the VSA programs and what makes me proud of this quilt is that it's not saying, hey, I had a tough break in my life and I'm entitled to something, or you need to do something for me to make my life better and worth living. It's not what it says at all. In fact, what it says is I'm not asking you to do anything for me. I'm not asking what you can do for me. I'm saying I would just like the opportunity to show what I can do for you through my talents and my abilities. The quilt squares are amazing, and each one make it a piece of art. And the stories behind it are inspiring and breathe the human spirit into it. But it's the message. It's a message that JFK spoke about. It's a message that Jean Kennedy Smith dreamed of, and it's a message that these individuals have now shared with all of you. And that's the message that I think truly makes this a thing of beauty. And I thank all of you for allowing us to share that beauty with you. Thank you very much.